here with my friend Teddy Bear today to recommend 2 teddy bear books, both of them wonderful. I'm going to read one and just recommend the other. The first we read when my group of fine students gathered virtually for our class meeting. How Teddy Bears Are Made is a wonderful book. I recommend it to you. It takes you through a teddy bear factory. Today, I'm going to read The Legend of the Teddy Bear. It's a true story. It's a little longer than we sometimes read, so perhaps you could find your teddy bear or something else that's snuggly, get into a soft place where you like to sit and get comfortable. I will read each page, they're kind of long, and then show you the picture. One warning, there's one scary part, and there's a gun in this book also. It's kind of sad, but don't worry. Don't worry, the scary part gets better pretty quickly, but if you don't want to see the gun, then close your eyes. In the days when America was a younger country and much of the land was filled with dense green forests, animals roamed freely through the great American wilderness. In the cities, the clip-clop of horses' feet could be heard as they pulled black buggies through bustling streets. Smoking black trains rolled across the countryside, connecting cities and towns to prairies and forests, moving travelers across the wild territories of America. In those days, there lived a strong, adventurous man with a big, bushy mustache. He was the President of the United States of America, and his name was Theodore Roosevelt. The people of America adored their president, and they fondly called him Teddy. Teddy Roosevelt loved adventures. He loved to go exploring while riding on his horse, Manitou. Teddy wandered through the wooded valleys of Pennsylvania and climbed the towering peaks of the Colorado Rockies. He roamed the sweeping green prairies, marveling at nature's beauty. But one of the things Teddy loved to do the most was camp in the wide open spaces of America and fall asleep under a blanket of 1,000 twinkling stars. Teddy often rode on Manitou while hunting wild animals. In those days, many Americans hunted deer and bears. Teddy loved hunting too. During one trip, Teddy traveled to the states of Mississippi and Louisiana. The 2 states wanted this great and fair man to settle an argument about a boundary line. When his work was done, he decided to explore the green forests of Mississippi and go bear hunting. Late in the day, on November the 14th, 1902, as the sun was setting, some of the men in the president's group cornered a young bear. Barking dogs surrounded the frightened bear as the men roped and tied it to a tree. One of the men called out, "President Roosevelt, come quick, we have a bear for you." This is the kind of yucky part, guys. This next page is not my favorite. Branches cracked and twigs snapped as President Roosevelt raced Manitou through the thick forest. Hearing the excited voices of his men, he reached the clearing where the men and barking dogs were gathered. All were pointing at a bear that had been roped and tied to a tree. The frightened bear clawed at the rope, trying to free itself. The bear whipped his head back and forth. Its back feet kicked up clouds of dust and dirt. I'll show you both pictures. That one. Some pictures. These are good illustrations. Teddy looked down at his rifle and then laid it on the ground. He shouted out to his men, "Stop badgering that bear. It is helpless. Let it go." Following the president's orders, the men cut the rope and let the bear go free. A few days later, a newspaper cartoonist named Clifford Berryman heard about the president's meeting with the bear. He drew a cartoon illustrating President Roosevelt and a wild bear. The cartoon first appeared in a newspaper called the Washington Post. People everywhere were talking about how the president had ordered his men to let a wild bear go free. Soon, the cartoon appeared in newspapers all over the country. People from New York to Michigan to California saw the cartoon and read about Teddy's kindness toward the defenseless bear. The nation's love for their president grew even stronger. A couple from New York, Rose and Morris Mitchum, saw the cartoon while reading their morning newspaper and, like so many other people of America, were touched by what President Roosevelt had done. Rose and Morris opened a candy shop. They loved having children visit their shop. Big glass jars stuffed full of brightly colored candy lined the shelves. The smells of peppermint and lemon drops and licorice sticks filled the air. There were shelves with porcelain dolls, shelves with wooden toy soldiers, and shelves with wind-up toy trains. Rose and Morris talked about their president's kindness as they prepared to open their candy shop that morning. As they talked about the bear in the cartoon, an idea for a toy was born. Rose and Morris thought children might like a soft, cuddly toy, something a child could squeeze and hug while drifting off to sleep. They decided to make a stuffed toy bear. Rose and Morris both agreed that a soft, furry material, the color of golden honey, would be perfect. Morris skillfully cut out the pattern for each little limb and paw. He cut out patterns in the shape of a bear's head and body and then handed them to Rose. Rose always enjoyed sewing and sat quietly humming as she sewed the pieces together. She tenderly filled each part with fluffy stuffing. Each limb was attached to the body with a special metal wheel that was hidden under the golden fur. Just like a real bear, this toy bear's legs could move. Rose gently held the little bear's paw as she checked to see that each little limb moved up, down, and all the way around. Next, Rose used shiny black boot buttons for the eyes as she delicately sewed black thread onto the honey fur, forming a little nose and a mouth. Rose's eyes sparkled, just like the boot button eyes of her new little bear. Rose nuzzled her face against the golden honey fur and thought, "You, little bear, will make a child very, very happy." The next morning, Rose awoke early and began to make another toy bear. As she sat touching the soft fur, Rose imagined how wonderful it would be if all the children in the world could have their own special bear. Rose and Morris excitedly placed the two stuffed bears in the front window of their candy shop. They smiled proudly at their two golden-colored bears as people passing by stopped and admired their new creations. The little bears didn't sit long in the candy shop window, though. Before the end of the day, both bears had a new home. While Morris was closing up the candy store that evening, he suddenly realized that they needed a name for their toy bears. What would be a good name? Teddy's bear, he thought. Morris wondered if their adventurous president would mind if they named their toy bears Teddy's bear. Morris thought the proper thing to do would be to ask the president if he minded. So he decided to write a letter to him. In the letter, Morris told the president how Mr. Berryman's cartoon had inspired him and his wife to create two toy bears and how the children loved them. Morris told him how they were going to make more soft, cuddly bears, but they needed a name for them. Morris asked the president if they could use his name. While Morris was writing the letter, Rose began making another bear to escort the letter to the White House. Stitch by stitch, Rose carefully sewed the bear. While she was stitching the little bear, Morris thought of something. Rose, I believe our little messenger should dress up for such an important trip. Morris thought a vest would be very proper for a White House visit, and Rose agreed. Rose cut out and sewed a little leather vest. Next, she slipped the fancy vest onto the bear's little body. Then she fastened a small gold chain from one vest pocket to a buttonhole. It looked like their bear was wearing a pocket watch, just like President Theodore Roosevelt. Now the little bear looked ready for the White House, their hearts and minds filled with excitement as they gingerly placed the letter and the bear into a box. Rose and Morris addressed the package, this is silly, President Theodore Roosevelt, the White House, Washington, D.C. Rose and Morris worried that a busy man like the President of the United States wouldn't have time to answer a letter about a toy bear. Day after day, week after week, Rose and Morris waited for a reply. They eagerly searched their mail for a letter from the President. Finally, one day they received an envelope from the White House. Morris's hands trembled as he opened the letter. Rose's heart pounded. Inside, they found a handwritten letter from President Theodore Roosevelt. Nervously, Morris read the letter aloud. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Mitchum, I warmly thank you for your letter and the fine stuffed bear you made. I can hardly wait to show my children. However, I don't think my name is likely to be worth much in the toy bear business, but you are welcome to use it. I wish you great luck with your toy bear business. Sincerely, President Theodore Roosevelt. The president loved the little bear and he approved of the name. Thereafter, Rose and Morris proudly named each bear Teddy's Bear. It wasn't long before little boys and girls were enjoying their very first stuffed bears, made with love by Rose and Morris, in honor of a great president. Millions and millions of children all around the world have since held on tightly to their teddy bears. A teddy bear is a trusted, faithful, and timeless friend whose dedication is always ready and never ending. Cool, right? What a good story. So, a couple suggestions. There's a wonderful song, Teddy Bear Picnic. I recommend the version offered by Jerry Garcia. It's fun. If you like to listen to music and are loving your teddy bear stories, that's a good one. Also, if you're an older person and you're starting to be interested in some research, President Theodore Roosevelt is a fascinating character. If you're not really interested in a biography, he had a great deal to do with the national parks. So that would be another interesting topic that you could study a little bit online and see some of the spaces that he protected to make our world a more beautiful place forever. So enjoy your teddy bears, enjoy these stories.